Hello, everybody. This is Connor Shank, and today you're listening to the Constant Sports Podcast. This podcast is committed to connecting you to sports professionals because they say it's all about who you know. And today you'll know Tanner Sands. Thanks for joining us today, Tanner.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And for our viewers at home, Tanner currently works with the Long Island Rough Riders as their interim general manager, and he's had a plethora of sports marketing related experience with the LA Galaxy, sportsman marketing, some other jobs in there that we'll touch on. So today we're going to be going for marketing, game day promotions, sports business, graduate school. Really just dive into all that. So we're looking forward to today's episode. I guess to start out, I'm always fascinated why people get into the sports industry. What made you want to work kind of in this industry? Was it you'd want to be like a general manager with a pro hockey team, pro football team? What was it that inspired you to get in?
Yeah. Obviously great question, and everyone has their whys. I would say, not to be cliche, but growing up, I would get up an hour early just to watch a full hour of Sports Center before I went to
Yep.
school. And it's one of those things where it just, my parents put me in every sport possible, I think, just to keep me busy at night. And it's where I, had friends, met people, and kind of, again, not to be too cliche, but developed as a person, and it kind of made me who I am. And I think as a going off that point, as I got older, it also like in many ways changed me. I think sports and has a one of the is one of the few things that can change someone's ideologies or who they
Mhm.
are as people. And I come, and as we were talking before we started here, I've have a unique background where I grew up in multiple different places. So I think sports was always my way in of building friendships and getting to know people. And even more so growing up in a background in like rural suburban Minnesota than suburban Utah. Um, Playing sports was the way I got to connect with people who maybe didn't look like me or weren't like me or had different backgrounds. And I learned a lot about not only myself but other people through sports. And so not only did I have a passion for playing and the competition, but also I think just the growth that it enabled me to have. Yeah, is I guess why I got into it. And everyone, I thought, for a while, watching SportsCenter every day, be a broadcaster, commentator, and then it went to, wanting to represent athletes because I thought there was a lot of stuff going on in that industry that I could help change. And then you get into it and I don't know, learn that you might have other talents, and that's kind of how, or something that might better fit who you are and what you're good at. And I think that's how I ended up kind of going into more of the soccer industry and being in the front office. It changes as you go, but I
Mhm.
think long story short is I think it's a big part of who I am, and I think a lot of people in this industry have that same backstory.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we're all kind of, it's either you played college soccer, so we'll touch on that a little bit, but it's either like we all wanted to either be like a professional baseball player, soccer player, or something, and then we get into like high school, college, and it's like, maybe I won't be professional, so I'll just work in sports, and they kind of figure out, avenue or angle. So that's cool. And talk to us about, how, being a college athlete, how is that beneficial as you've kind of started your career in sports? What, attributes have you brought over, from that side?
Sure, yeah. And again, going back to how you end up where you are, I grew up playing every sport, and I think I would say my first passions were like hockey and football, but soccer was more of a stay in shape sport. And then started getting recruited and was like, oh, I should maybe take soccer more seriously, and went down that path. And everyone has a dream of wanting to play professional sports. And there was some D1 interest I had, and I visited a few D1 schools. But the first school that ever reached out to me, the reason I started focusing on soccer, was a school I knew nothing about coming from suburban Utah. It was a small liberal arts school in the Northeast, and but the coach was incredible throughout my experience. Not really just to bring me to that school, but just to talk about his life and what I should be looking for in colleges. So long story short, my senior year, I took a visit out there, just almost as in goodwill, just because he helped me along the way. And I went there and I just came off. I think I was at Seattle and St. Mary, a few like good quality like D1 soccer schools. And they talked about how like this is your life. This is what you're doing. This is a 24/7 job. This is what you're coming here for. And I went to the school and I walk in on my visit, and the kids are out. They just had a game, they're having fun, they're enjoying it, but the whole team was together. And I learned about the school and the campus, and I always kind of at that point knew like I was a good player, not great, and I started taking academics a bit more seriously, and I just
Mhm.
fell in love on that visit and ended up going to a very, very, I think at the time was like a top 10, top 15 school in the country. And I would have never known what the school was or had that opportunity if soccer didn't open up those doors. And obviously playing there, there's a few kids on my team in the same boat where they probably could have gone D1, had that interest. And although we were a D3 school, we played D1 schools. And,
Right.
I remember my junior, senior year, we beat Marist 5-1, which was a above 500 D1 school. So we had some talent, but really I think there was a good combination of enjoyment, academics, and
Mhm.
also playing at a high level and the same expectations as when you're on the field, you're giving it your all and stuff. And I mean, sports just sets you up in that sense. It teaches you work ethic, how to work with people, how to relate to people. And I think college is the epitome of that. You're with them every day, waking up at 5 a.m. for, lifts and stuff like that. So I think it just sets you up well, and but also gives you a whole wealth of knowledge outside of it as well if you do it right.
Right. Yeah. I think, as people say all the time, like sports is such a great spot for life lessons and,
Yeah.
resiliency and great and all those things. And I feel like that can't really go overstated. Where sports it's a great equalizer, brings everyone together, no matter your background, creed, whatnot. When you're on the field, when you're on the basketball court, it's all, you're all going for one goal. And I think a lot of those skills and, leadership attributes are transferable into business and to your work life. We're all businesses trying to get to one goal. You're trying to reach these certain platforms and whatnot. So yeah, I'm a big, sports advocate, obviously, as I work in sports and, like seeing people kind of grow up and playing sports and learning those skills. But as you graduated and moved on, we actually connected with Ashley Sloper, who put
Yeah.
us in touch here. So you ended up out in San Francisco. Now, did you do the San Francisco campus or Orange County one?
Orange County. And funny, I guess, just because you brought her up, I was actually saw Ashley a few weeks back when she, connected us.
Uh-huh.
And then I was, we were going over how I ended up going to that school. And it's because I was actually looking at law schools. But every time I was looking at law school, I kept going back to sports or writing papers on sport.
Yeah.
Like maybe I should look into this. And I was, looking at a few master programs, and I call USF just to kind of get more details about it. And she picked up. And my brother was, out in San Francisco at the time. He was playing soccer for San Francisco State. And I call her and she's like, I'm just an Orange County girl. I'm a Southern California girl. It's, I would, if you're looking at both, I would recommend Southern California. So yeah, I ended up going to the Southern California campus, in large part to her.
And so, as you were saying, you were looking at law school, looking at some other schools, and
Yeah.
you kind of connect up with Ashley there. Were you looking at kind of once you narrowed it down? Was it like San Francisco? Was it like did you kind of put all your chips into that one, or did you have other, I guess, schools you were looking at?
Yeah, I know I was looking at a few. I can't. I think UMass. There was
Mhm.
a few I was looking at. But ultimately, I think I wanted to be on the West Coast. And my
Right.
roommate all 4 years in college was in Southern California. He's from there. It just ended up being, I guess, the perfect world where I
Right.
had someone I really close with to stay with. A good education, and honestly, Ashley was a big part in kind of, I wouldn't say recruiting me there, but giving me details on why, what that program had to offer. And I think it just made sense
Mhm.
in my mind. And there was also some background if I wanted to go the law school route or agency route, which at the time I
Yeah.
think that's why I was looking at it. There was courses for that, and it just seemed to make sense to me. And so yeah, ended up going that route.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. We have a lot of listeners. I guess if you viewers on here who are either at that like they just graduated school and they're kind of looking into the graduate school, sports law, sports business background, I think it's always important to look at the classes, especially because I feel like grad school, it's a lot of like, you know, group projects or things that are relative to the sports industry, right? It's not like you're taking a biology 200 class where it's like you don't really care about it. A lot of the classes we're taking are, actually real world experiences, which is what I love the most about grad school. So I don't know if you had any experiences where you did some projects or different classwork that was like really hands-on industry related experience that you're like, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool. I think I'm in the right spot, doing the right things.
Yeah, forgetting the name of the course is bad. Sorry. It's been these NHL NBA games that go till 2 a.m. on the East
Yeah,
Coast crush me, and I've been
they're
tired
killing
the
you.
last week and a half. But no, there was a few courses where we had to do projects and then present them to. And I think I listened to a bit of when you and Ashley were talking, and she talked a lot about how a lot of the professors have real work. The reason that especially the
Right.
adjunct ones are they're in the industry, and
Hmm.
there's a level of credibility when you're talking to someone who's been doing it for 30, 40 years, and
Yeah.
this is has done it and is doing it at a very high level even then. And so some of the projects we had is they bring them into the their own industry and have us present a project. And I know one we did it to an agency, and I'm forgetting I don't think it was CA. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but we had to kind of talk about like how we would connect one of their athletes with a company and how to
Right.
market and promote and do all that kind of stuff. And I remember we're sitting there presenting in front of some of the top agents in the world about how they should do, and it was one of those that I think people get nervous, and I did too. I should say, presenting as it is, let alone in front of people who, one day we hope to work for and things
Yeah.
like that. So talk about like getting you prepared. There's no better way to prepare yourself than just kind of throwing you in. And I think that's one thing that that program did very well. Is it really did give you those experiences and those abilities, like you're doing right here with this platform, to connect
Hmm.
and learn from some of the people, just because our professors were some of those people that that were doing it. So I think that's definitely something I kind of forget the question, but yeah, that was that. Hopefully I answered it a
Yeah.
bit there,
No. Yeah.
but
Nailed it
I
there.
remember just being able to activate and actually do it was a pretty cool experience.
Hmm. And then as a lot of our viewers are kind of going on to the workforce and getting out there in the real world, getting their hands dirty. After you graduated, or I guess were you working with the LA Galaxy in sports and marketing as you were in school, or was that kind of after you graduated and going
Yeah,
forward?
so while I was in school, we, was intern. I should say, the Galaxy was just more of a youth level club. I was just helping coach and make money, but I was with Sports One
Hmm.
Marketing, which was kind of an agency slash marketing platform, and then I was also with Orange County Soccer Club, which is a USL Championship club. So I was doing that, and when I was in school was the first year the pandemic hit. So we had year one, year two, the pandemic hit, um, and they were nice enough to keep me on, but obviously they had to rail back a little bit. So I was still with them and doing it as the program went on, but that's kind of how we ended up working remote, got a job here in New York with the Rough Riders, and that's kind of how it all happened.
Yeah, just like that. So what's I guess what was the process like with getting a job with the Rough Riders? Was it something you were kind of you had your eye on? Was it through a connection, like a Teamworks Online application? What that look like?
Yeah, it was definitely teamwork. I was with Orange County Soccer Club,
Mhm.
but they nice enough to keep me on, keep the experience, but the pay rolled back a little bit. And during the pandemic, most teams and
Yeah.
the whole industry were rolling back and laying off. And this job presented itself, and I was kind of looking and wanting to go back to New York just because I was college there. A bunch of my friends ended up in the city, and
Mhm.
it was a place I was comfortable with. And this job opened up, and yeah, Teamworks applied. I realized I had a few connections around the area, people who once played for the Rough Riders or worked there like years ago, and they kind of connected me to this. So it was a bit of a connection, a bit of an application, but the application came first, and then I realized I had some resources that helped connect me along the way. But yeah, they're in a yeah, I guess there wasn't many opportunities, and they were kind enough to give me one, and a lot of it started with being at Orange County Soccer Club and having that
Mhm.
experience, which I attribute to the program, because Ashley, keep bringing her up, but she's actually the one who set me up and introduced me to Orange County Soccer Club, and that kind of helped me into finding the job with the Rough Riders with the experiences I had from there.
Right. Yeah, it's good. Those early jobs might not be, the best, the most colorful jobs, but a lot of the times are the stepping stone, jobs to, excuse me, where we get at now. And I guess just for the viewers, what does kind of your day to day look like? Is it what you expected when you were applying for the job, or what's it looking like?
Sure. Yes and no. So I guess since I took that job, I think I was like on the marketing promotion teams maybe at the time when I first took
Mhm.
it. I think that was the role, and helping with a program director over some of the youth stuff we were doing here at the Rough Riders. But since then I've luckily it's a I guess it's a fourth division level in US soccer in terms of where we're at. So it's a smaller organization with a bunch of assets. We have 3 or 4 of the biggest facilities in the state of New York in terms of multi-sport
Oh,
soccer, obviously all that. There's one of a youth club that has 700 members. Then there's the actual USL team that has
mhm.
men's and women's academies all the way down. We do international trips, tournaments with youth soccer teams. We hold competition, yeah, tournaments, winter, summer, do all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
there's a lot going on. So I remember I was kind of thrown into the fire, and they brought me in for one reason. I remember just doing a lot of different things for them, but that's where, and the reason you're starting this is these programs set you up for that. They give you so many
Mhm.
different experiences and so many different, from marketing to promotions to sales to, agency stuff like, I remember at USF, we got to do all that. And luckily that transition, because I remember doing everything at the start, but luckily, and again, and, one thing I'd always say is, when you're going to these master's program is dive into it. I
Right.
wasn't a math guy, but I remember we were doing P&Ls and profit reports for a
Yeah.
class. And all of a sudden, I'm being asked to do this because there was people leading these programs or departments that weren't able to do it, and that was able to set myself apart. And
Mhm.
I'm 27, and I'm the interim GM just because I've been able to apply a skill set that I learned in the program that works with my day to day. So to
Yeah.
long story short, no, the day to day was not what I expected. It was a lot more than what I expected, but I think that made it fun. I was doing something different every day. I was one day working with our USL team and these professional players and coaches, and the next day overseeing a camp that had 300 people, and the
Mm.
next day looking at our facility numbers and making sure all of the boxes are checked with rental agreements, things like that. And I didn't expect to be doing all that, but the industry, you do a lot of things I think you don't expect.
Yep.
But it's being able to do it and being willing to do it even though that's not what you want to be doing,
Right.
maybe.
Wearing a lot of hats and really just
Yeah.
doing a lot of things, like you said, that you weren't anticipating. You're like, okay, I didn't think I was going to be in this sector, but now I'm here, so I might as well dive in and really get after it. I think those types of skills and that willingness is huge, especially in the sports industry where it's not your typical 9 to 5 job hours, work week, relative to the other careers that people can choose. But as you've been in this role now for, I think it's almost been 2 years, you kind of been this in this general manager role. I guess, have you? You possibly you could have been, a great leader, and you were already, had your leadership skills up. But have you been like different attributes that you've seen, like, okay, I think I need to work on this, or maybe I need to tone this down? Kind of how's that gone as you've been in this role?
Yeah, I think you're always learning, and yeah,
Mhm.
it's definitely been a learning curve for myself. I think being that I'm younger in this role, and working with a lot of people that have a lot more years of experience than I do. I think at first it was a bit tough to feel like, I mean, quite transparently, like just that they respect that I'm in this role
Right.
and able to get this position because they've been around a lot longer than I have, or have maybe more experiences than I do. So I think I was maybe a bit timid at the start, but I think luckily I work around some pretty awesome people and people that have helped mentor me, and I think you just learn along the way from doing it. I think
Mhm.
being in meetings, and I think at first, like I said, I was a bit gun shy a little bit to stand up and
Right.
speak my voice and to really stand with the role I had. But I think as you go, I think when people see you do it and know that you're willing to do everything they are doing or have
Mhm.
done something that they've done and can do it at a at a high ability level, I think people respect you. And I think that's the big thing I've learned is, people lead in many different
Yeah.
ways. But being able to speak your voice, but also show it and do it and work with them day to day and put in those hours. I think people have you see the people that no one can hide when you're working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week with them. You
Right.
can't hide what you can do and can't do. You can't hide the ability levels you have as a person and who you are as a person. So I think just being a good person and being able to do the things you're speaking about is a big thing.
Definitely.
I think I learned that just to trust who I am and the reason I was put in this position in the first
Mhm.
place.
Yeah, no, I echo all those thoughts. And you touched a little bit about mentors, mentorship and whatnot. So do you have, I guess, have you gone out and, reached touch base with people and kind of asked to be maybe mentoree, or you have a mentor? Kind of, what are your thoughts on mentors?
Yeah, yeah, and I think mentor is such a cliche term. People throw, but you need people to learn from, and you
Yep.
need like I think people look at that, that I hear like mentor. It's like it's really just being someone you trust to go to,
Mhm.
and those people can be older with wealth of experience, or they can be someone, you just met. That it's just being willing to learn and listen, and we need those. It's just friends, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, someone you can talk to about what's going on, and yeah, I would like to say I have plenty of those. Ashley being one. I mean, you
Mhm.
you know the kind of person she is from just talking to her. She goes out of all her, her so far out of her way for all her students. And I think just having someone like that to bounce things off of and learn from and all that. Yeah, yeah, you're
Definitely.
not going to make it in this industry if you're not willing
Yep.
to go to people and have people to go to. And as you speak about you do need a network. You do need to know people. It's such a closed off industry, and if you want to be successful, you have to be able to count on people. And it's so yeah, I'd like to think I'm lucky enough to have quite a few people that I can bounce ideas off and learn from.
Right. Yeah. And I think, they say in the sports industry, you can never do it alone. And for the most part, I would say majority of the jobs are things that, the young sports professionals are aspiring to be. There's already someone in that role. And so you
Yeah,
just have to figure out like how they went from A to B to C to D. And it's
yeah,
relatively kind of a similar path. Like you gotta, ticket sales, the sponsorships or whatever it is. And it's those are the types of people that you can pick their brain and say, like, hey, Tanner, I know you're the interim GM now. Like kind of how'd you get to that role? What are some of the steps? So I think it's
yeah. And
it's skills that we all need.
to go off that, I think like mentors, people see them as people who are like ultra successful and all, but
Yeah.
I think you and Ashley talked about it's not a linear path. You need to
Hmm.
be able to talk to people at all. Like Ted Roberts, he's I think president for the Pirates now. He's someone I've been lucky enough to speak to, like just through family friends originally, and then just
Hmm.
have become close with. But I'd also say I have people I work with, such as Adam Alloway, who is just started with us, and he's
Hmm.
kind of like I was new out of college, but he has a wealth of ideas and experience, that I need to know too, just because I there's
Exactly.
some ideas that he just experienced, and or being in the programs we were,
Hmm.
uh, that he's learned since then, and I think you just need to be able to listen, and that's what it all comes down to.
Yep, listening and being a sponge. And I guess as we've talked a little bit about your day to day and your job, what do you love most about your profession, your role now? Like, what kind of wakes you up in the morning and gets you fired up?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think it goes back to what we were saying is it's easy once you get in a profession to every company they're a company, right? They're a business.
Hmm.
There's bottom line, there's you have to report P&Ls and all that, but ultimately I don't think I think no matter what industry you're in, there's a burnout as long as you don't remember, you need to remember that why and why you got in it in the first place. And like I
Hmm.
said, I think um I hope I always remember that the reason I'm in it is the people, the relationships, and ultimately like we kind of talked about, sports is just this beautiful thing that allows us to connect with people and people that we probably wouldn't have connected with otherwise. Like I said, I grew up in a place that I mean, not to get too into it, but talk about like white culture, suburban
Yeah.
Utah, rural Minnesota, and I grew up and then I joined a soccer team where I was, of the minority and I got to, meet people from on my team from Honduras, Brazil, Mexico, Ivory Coast,
Hmm.
all over the world. And that, opened my eyes to experiences that I didn't understand at first, but you learn to understand, you learn to get to know people. And I think not to get too into it, but we live in a pretty diverse world and
Hmm.
sports is a beautiful way of connecting people. And I hope that's kind of continues to be my purpose is
Yep.
being able to love this thing I'm doing and to connect people and to work in this space that enables that at the end of the day from both a youth level to professional level to a fan level, to be accessible, to be to keep the doors open to everyone who wants to be part of it. There's days where you forget that, but I'd like to still think that's what drives me.
Yeah. No, I like it. I loved all that. I guess have you done much hiring yourself? And if so, what do
Yeah.
you kind of look for in interviews? Are there certain, things that people say, that's like, maybe shouldn't have said that, or just different kind of interview tips for the listeners and viewers out there?
Yeah, I should start with I do, but I don't know if I'm the best interviewer. I like it to just be a conversation
Yep.
and be relatable and just be comfortable with who you are. Like they say you should prepare and practice, and you should. You should
Hmm.
get to know the company you're interviewing for. You should get to probably know the person you're going to
Yep.
be interviewing with. But ultimately, I think it's pretty clear when you're talking to someone who's so rehearsed. And so, like I
Hmm.
think it's important just to come across genuine. And then obviously, I think something we all learn is you have to be unique too. Like
Hmm.
you have to, and that's what, and I know as we talked about a lot of, what you're trying to do is set people up with these sports management programs and talk to them while they're in it. And I would just say dive into learning skill sets that maybe you're not comfortable with. Like I wasn't with profit reports and P&Ls, but excuse me, that ended up getting me, having that weird,
Right.
that minor skill set set me apart. And, or like, data is becoming such a massive
Yeah.
part of this industry is learn, if you're in, going into the soccer industry, there's so many new companies that are working with data and data sets and player performance, and get to know those, have the ability to, I don't know, code, write
Hmm.
reports, do things, that are uncomfortable because, while you're in school, you have more time and um less responsibilities than you might after, and sometimes it doesn't feel that way. But I would just say push yourself, press yourself to learn things that probably are uncomfortable to you at the moment, because and when it comes to an interview and you're able to say, hey, yeah, I've actually coded, like I was recently looking for someone with marketing media experience, but they also had the ability to code, and they could help with our
Yep.
website development and things like that. That what, like that's another position we're looking for. You filled two boxes. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you're an immediate person where going on to the next, interview, this
Hmm.
second or third steps to it. So I would just say, just continue to work on your skill set and expand it, because being able to say you can do different things and have different abilities is important.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we've talked, as you were talking, kind of expanding and growing. Where do you see kind of the business side of the Rough Riders going in the future? Do you guys do a lot of sponsorships? I mean, I
Yeah.
guess obviously you can't talk about a lot of it, but I was just curious the business side of that and kind of how that works at the soccer level.
Yeah, so there's this comes at a very unique time when we are looking to go up a few levels in the
Hmm.
professional spectrum, which means we have to take it up many levels on the business and, like you said, the partnership sponsorship sides
Right.
to be able to do it. It's an exciting time for us, and we haven't hit the fact. Our hope is to have a professional men's and women's team. So what I can say is that's something we are looking at, continuing to go up. And
Yep.
I don't know if anyone watches like Welcome to Wrexham, where in Europe you win your way up. In the US,
Yeah.
that's
Not the
not how it
case.
works. You for better or worse pay your way
Pay your
up.
way. Yeah, I was just gonna say you
So
pay your way up.
so yeah, we in order to pay your way up, you have to have the financial backing and the support through investments, sponsorships,
Hmm.
and you have to have the field space, the stadium space, to the capacities, there's operations at a high level, things like that. So it's a pretty cool time, and we're hoping we can one day bring Long Island a professional men's and women's team, and hopefully that day is sooner rather than later. So yeah,
Yeah, I'd love to see it. Now, I
I
was
can't share too much, but
Yeah, no, I
just,
know. I was,
we're looking at it.
I handcuffed you there. I was just curious, kind of, just at the level it was. I'm sure you guys were always looking to expand and whatnot. But I was going to ask you about the welcome to Wrexham. Just in a business sense, does that give you kind of any inspiration or any, like, okay, we can do it? I was just curious your thoughts on that whole series.
Yeah, I mean, you're never gonna have a Ryan Reynolds, and you can kind of only do it once, right? And they perfected. And I think just this past weekend they won the national
Uh-huh.
league. Not to spoil the next
The
season.
season, yeah, the series for those who's watching.
Yeah, not everyone can have a Netflix show and do that, but I mean, they showed a way, right? Like you have to be new, you have to be innovative, and these are two people who weren't in the industry and who fell in love with the game of soccer, and they've in a weird way perfected what many lower level, lower division teams wish they could, which is create an environment that brings passion to the fans and
Mhm.
creates fan fanatics, that people are invested all around the world in a fifth division English
Yeah.
soccer, right? And obviously the names and the people behind it help, but they, you have to be able to brand well and
Mhm.
to be able to bring in partnerships like TikTok. You have to have the platform to do it, and they showed that no matter the level you're at, you can do it, but you have to do it right. And that comes a lot of into a lot of planning and
Yeah.
experience. And you have to be innovative. You have to be willing, again, to be uncomfortable, and to push the boundaries with doing things that people aren't doing. And there's a lot of new platforms. I know younger generation, there's this esports that are massive, and there's
Mhm.
there's new platforms such as TikTok, or you have to understand that there's other social medias outside of just the US that are big, and how do you get on those to get those all types of people interested. And I think they've obviously are the showing the way for that. Not
Yeah.
everyone will be able or will be able to do it, but there's a way, and there's always things to learn from it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's like the perfect storm where, it's the fifth, or I think or fourth or fifth level kind of over there in soccer. And there's two, like American celebrity superstars, you could say. So I feel like the financial backing was there, and obviously they're a big brand themselves. So it's like, I always
Yeah.
feel like in those like sponsorship pitches or whatnot, it's like, yeah, we have the soccer team, but then like Ryan Reynolds is also like posting on his own like platform. So it's like you're getting like millions of
Yeah.
people. Just it's not just the soccer, like it's those two, Rob and Ryan's
Yeah.
brand.
And not to go too in depth in terms of like the soccer industry and stuff, but there's teams in the US that have done it very well. There's this Vermont FC, which
Mhm.
probably many won't know, but they're a USL 2 club, same division as we currently are in, who've done incredible. They sold out their season tickets, the second they put it out in 5 minutes,
Wow.
over like 5,000 tickets. Yet they're a fourth division American team. And it's just because they had a hyper local approach,
Mhm.
and they focused every part of their marketing on being a just an environmental soccer professional franchise, and how
Mhm.
they're giving back to the community. And they were able to hyper localize their content and work with the people and partnerships that also looked at their brand, like Ben and Jerry's, that's super environmentally focused. And they're able to market their brand, create a brand first and foremost, environmentally focused. And then all these companies were able to go to them, and they're trying to put a environmental touch on what
Yeah.
their brand, and they're able to connect. So there's ways to do it. You don't have to always do it like, it's hard to do it like Wrexham, but if
Mhm.
you do it right, there's always a way.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess as you're obviously very, in tune with the industry, but how do you keep up with different sports sectors? Like, do you read the Sports Business Journal? How do you kind of stay ahead of the
Yeah.
times there?
Uh, I'd like to say yes, I do. I would say more for me, it's just waking up and reading The Athletic. I think that
Mhm.
subscription is, I think it's $10 a month or whatever it is. I think usually they have deals going on. It's well worth the subscription. I think they're way ahead of the curve in terms of, if you're interested in data and how data works in sports, and every department, soccer to football to baseball, they have writers. And to be honest, I'm just a Minnesota sports fan, and at heart too, and being able to follow what they do, and you learn about what
Mhm.
the Twins, Wild, Timberwolves, Vikings are doing, both on the player side, sports side, but also on the business side. I think the Athletic does a good job. So that's my transition of saying no, I haven't kept up with the Sports Journal, but I'm using the Athletic as a
Yeah.
cop out for that.
No, I'm with you. It's you gotta. I feel like the sports industry, there's enough like veins and
Yeah,
different companies that do it where you just pick one and they say, okay, like I'll just follow this one and keep it rolling. And it's just
yeah,
sports is like ever evolving and constantly, something new every day. So I feel like
yeah.
someone covers it all. But yeah, I just want to say thanks for joining the podcast today. We appreciate your time and this great insight. We're try to keep it within 30-35 minutes here, but we'll just give you the floor if you want to shout out, the Rough Riders. We're just gonna give you the floor, do what you need to do here, and spread your message.
No, I know. I should probably give a shout out to the USF program. It was set me up. It was great. Ashley, who you had on this, is a phenomenal person. So if you're younger and looking to go into the sports management world, I would highly recommend the USF program. And also just to you, I think this is a really cool platform that you're setting up to connect people. And yeah, and lastly, to anyone who is listening to this and wants to reach out, happy to connect with people and happy to share some hopefully more insight. Maybe you don't want it after this podcast. Maybe I, didn't give great answers, or I mumble and ramble, but always happy. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn or wherever. So yeah.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Well, thanks everyone for listening. And this is just another episode of the Constant Sports Podcast here. And today we talked to Tanner Sands. So we're looking forward to watching you in your career, and especially as the Rough Riders get going here and possibly get up a division or two. So we'll be able to stay in touch and follow your career. So thanks again, Tanner.
Hey, you know what they say? It's all about who you know. And now, you know Tanner Sands.